Knicks lose again, and at this point I wonder how many of these episodes I'm going to start with that line. But they lose their 8th straight game to the Washington Wizards. Final score 118 to 113. And if you watch the game in and of itself looked like a microcosm of the entire season for the Knicks. The game was the Knicks season in a nutshell. First half, they come out absolutely on fire, guns blazing. Tim Hardaway showing you why he was worth that $71 million contract. 32 first half points. It was electric. It was at home. The crowd was going nuts every time Tim Hardaway Jr. touched the ball. It was electricity in the Garden. It reminded you of those early season games at home when the Knicks were playing some of the most exciting ball in the NBA, where, again, there were chants of MVP for Kristaps Porzingis, that Tim Hardaway Jr. was providing those high-flying moments. If he wasn't hitting a three, he was throwing it down acrobatically, just like he did last night off that alley-oop from Jarrett Jack. 32 first-half points for Tim Hardaway Jr. I remember I was in the car driving home, listening to the game, and I'm thinking to myself, I gotta speed up. I gotta get home. I gotta watch this. The Knicks are playing the kind of exciting basketball that we saw earlier in the season. Tim Hardaway Jr. is putting on a show. I gotta get in front of a TV. I gotta watch this. I get home in time for halftime, and at that time, by that point, Tim Hardaway Jr. registering 32 points, and you're actually thinking to yourself, on one hand, you think, do we really want to win this game? Do we really want to jeopardize, compromise our lottery positioning? Because that has to be in the back of the minds of all Knicks fans at this point. That any win, as satisfying as it may be, as exciting as it may be, any win puts your lottery positioning at stake. And with that in mind, I'm thinking to myself, but this would be a nice win. This would be, the kind of win where, at the very least, any questions that you have about Tim Hardaway Jr., about this recent slump that he's been in, this epic slump that he's been in during the Knicks losing streak, you can kind of put that to rest. You could put those concerns to bed. You could rest assured that, look, he's been suffering through some injuries this season. We know that. And then, when you're suffering lower body injuries, it can affect your form as a three-point shooter. You could even accept that. And you say to yourself, you know what? Good. Tim Hardaway Jr. is putting on a show. All is well. If they come away with a win, at least you get a big performance out of a guy who you consider to be part of your core going forward. So it's not all bad. But then the second half comes. And you see the Knicks in their first possession of the second half. They rush the ball to Tim Hardaway Jr. And Hardaway Jr., without even hesitation, pulls up for a corner three. And I want to say it was Otto Porter Jr. Who had the block, unless it was Bradley Beal. It was one of the two who quickly gets in the face and gets a hand on Hardaway Jr.'s shot. And from that point on, it just seemed like it was all downhill for the Knicks. The Knicks had a 27-point lead. Let me repeat that. 27-point lead. That was their largest lead. When you have a 27-point lead at home and you're playing a team like the Washington Wizards that are having all sorts of issues of their own, they play some good basketball and all of a sudden you have guys tweeting out, oh, good team victory, hint, hint, without John Wall. When you have a team on the ropes like that, generally speaking, a team like that is probably thinking to themselves, you know what? It's been fun. Let's just get this game over with. We're in New York City. Might have some fun tonight, and then we'll go back to D.C. and we'll figure it out from there. But no, the Knicks let Washington hang around. Bradley Beal starts to go off a little bit, finishing with 36 points. Otto Porter starts going off. He finishes with 22 points. The legendary Jan Mahinmi starts to go off. He finishes with 17. And it goes on and on and on. But, you're watching that game and you're thinking to yourself, the Knicks are struggling here in the second half, but they're gonna walk away with a win tonight. It's not gonna be pretty, but you know what? Knicks get back in the win column. It's gonna be the first time in 8 games, so it's not the worst thing in the world. And one win's not gonna kill your lottery positioning. It's not gonna make that much of a difference at this point. Later down the line, it might, but right now, I don't know I think it's a little too early to, flip out over any win, but the second half progresses and progresses, and it was like a balloon that has the air slowly being sucked out of it. And the lead is dwindling and dwindling. Washington is getting defensive stop after defensive stop. The Knicks are putting up brick after brick. And you're sitting there watching this, and it just looked like, watching a car crash in slow motion, and there's nothing you can do to stop it. And eventually, as we all know by now, the Knicks wind up losing again. They lose by 5, 118 to 113. And there's so many things that are just disappointing about this game. We talk about Tim Hardaway Jr., and he has 32 first half points. So you're thinking to yourself, all right, you know what? Obviously, he's not going to score another 32 and go off for 64 points in a game. But you figure, you know what? He's going to at least maybe tack on another 12 points. Maybe you need another 10 points in the second half. Get you into that 40 range. Tim Hardaway Jr. finishes with 5 points in the second half. And for good reason. Washington really just clamped down on him, and they didn't let him continue to do what he did in the first half. Obviously, he didn't have a lot of secondary support. And when the Knicks score 15 points in the third quarter, you know that things are just not going well offensively. So I'm really not that... how could you go crazy? The guy scored 37 points at the end of the night, so I can't go crazy over him. The thing that I go crazy over is, again, the theme that I've been trying to hammer home now for the better part of the last week and a half or so. And oh, by the way, on a bright note, Porzingis, successful surgery. He's out of the hospital, going home. He posted on Instagram yesterday. That's great. Phenomenal. Good to know. This Knicks team has not shown any improvement. Yes, it hurts. It sucks when your franchise cornerstone player goes down for the season. But if your season is going to be that fragile, then this team, this organization, has failed as far as developing around Porzingis. This team has lost 8 games in a row. And when you look at the young players that we talk about, that we're hoping to see something out of, that we're hoping that Jeff Hornacek is going to give an extended look to, what have we seen so far? We were ecstatic as far as what we saw out of Emmanuel Mudiay after his first game against Indiana, where he just joined the team. He didn't get to practice at all with the Knicks, but he looked good. And again, we talked about how he's playing off basketball instincts, but he looked good. It was promising. It was the kind of start where you say to yourself, man, we got something here, right? When you finish with 14 points and 10 assists in your debut with your team that you just connected with them pretty much at the arena, you're happy. You're stoked. You're like, he's a spark in the backcourt. And Frank Ntilikina is scoring 12 points, playing alongside him in that first game. You're excited about that backcourt pairing. What has Mudiay done since? He did not play well the other night against Philadelphia. And now, granted, he played 20 minutes last night against Washington, only registering 8 points, 3 assists. But, going beyond the box score, if you're watching him, he just did not seem to give you the kind of energy that you would want for a guard coming off the bench, for a young guard coming off the bench, for a guard that was just traded 2 years after being a lottery pick. You would think that guy would come onto the floor, guns blazing, just ready to set the floor on fire. I mean, where was that? And where has that been? We haven't seen it. And look, we're hoping, we're praying for Frank Ntilikina to become something that we can, let go of this regret that the Knicks will go ahead and draft him over the likes of Dennis Smith Jr. and, of course, Donovan Mitchell, which obviously not just the Knicks, but there are a host of other teams in the NBA that are really banging their heads against the wall that they didn't see that talent. That said, if you want to give the excuse of injury, go right ahead. Frank Ntilikina has not shown us much lately. Yeah, he had that 12-point game against Indiana, but what has he shown since? Now, granted, Jeff Hornacek plays Frank Ntilikina only 11 minutes last night, and he does score 5 points. But if you're Frank Ntilikina, if you're Emmanuel Mudiay, and you're given an opportunity, you have to give Jeff Hornacek a reason to stay on the floor. You have to give a reason as far as why your number should be called and why you should be getting more minutes. Now, Jeff Hornacek last night said that after the All-Star break, Frank Ntilikina will see more time. Okay, we'll see about that. Where was Trey Burke last night? Where was Luke Kornet last night? Where was Isaiah Hicks last night? You're the Knicks. You're trying to develop young talent. You're trying to see what you have in some of your younger players, yet you're not playing them. Last night was a kind of game where, again, the whole game from first half to second half was like a microcosm of the Knicks season. It was also a microcosm of Jeff Hornacek's reluctance to play some of these younger players and instead opting to see his older veterans, who many of which are not going to be part of the future solution for this team. And that's the thing that drives fans nuts. That if you're going to lose a game, like last night where you blow a massive 27-point lead, and you're going to tell me that the young players are out there and they made the mistakes, they let a better Washington Wizard teams come in, make that kind of a comeback. At the very least, the silver lining to that is, all right, lesson learned. You hope. And look, I'm not saying that Emmanuel Mudiay is part of the future. I'm not saying even Frank Ntilikina, despite the fact that he was the 8th overall pick, is necessarily going to be part of your future. I'm not saying Luke Kornet, despite his double-double in his Knicks debut, is part of the future. I'm not saying Trey Burke, a former lottery pick, is part of your future. I'm not saying Isaiah Hicks out of North Carolina is part of your future. But you need to find out if they're part of your future. And that's not going to happen by them sitting on the bench, especially in a game like last night where the team looked like a shell of themselves first half to second half. This is nickfm.com. We'll be launching our website really shortly. So as soon as we do, we'll be putting out our contact information. We hope you'll get involved. It's going to be a lot of fun. It's going to be an interactive place for fans, for people who want to bring solid analysis of the Knicks. And we're going to make it available at nickfm.com.